Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today we're going to be taking a look at the third installment of How Much of a Grind is Star Citizen. So just in case you haven't caught the previous two episodes in this series, I'm looking to try and put together a small sort of starter fleet for a solo player. Now, I started with a Mustang Alpha, and then in the first episode I used that and some rentals to buy an Arrow. And then I used the Arrow bounty hunting to purchase a Prospector and Freelancer Max in the second episode. And today I'm going to be using the combination of that Prospector and Freelancer Max, doing some mining, and we're going to be aiming for the Constellation Andromeda. Just to give a hypothetical new player, sort of the final one, a multi-crew ship, so that if they've got some friends who join them in the verse at a later point, then they've got a ship that can accommodate sort of 3 to 5 people quite comfortably, and give a variety of sort of gameplay roles. So before we get into that, though, I do just want to say an absolutely massive thank you to everybody who has supported the channel so far. We saw it tick over 1,000 subscribers just this weekend, which was a huge milestone considering this was really a sort of project born out of lockdown. I wanted an excuse to play lots of Star Citizen, and I wanted to try and learn some video editing while I was at it. So in my very first video, I think I joked that we weren't at the point of giving giveaways yet, and we're probably still not. But I just wanted to say, sort of, all the time that this has taken me has been very enjoyable. So given that it's kept my wallet firmly in my pocket, I thought I'd get it out and give someone a gift to say thank you to the community for supporting me this far. So I've randomly selected someone from my comments. So Susie B is the winner, and I'll be in touch with them shortly. So I'm going to give them a Avenger Titan starting pack. I think this is probably one of the best starter ships. And Susie, if you've got a massive fleet already, then maybe you could consider giving it to one of your friends who you're looking to get into the game, as a sort of entry point. So if you are sort of new to the community, new to the game, then please consider coming and hitting our Discord. I'll include sort of the link down below in the video description. So, like I said in previous episodes, sort of I'd like to show you how things can be accomplished solo, but Starset is a game best experienced as part of a group. A lot of things become a lot easier with a couple more hands, a couple more people, and of course we've got some fantastic multi-crew ships. The target of this episode to get to one of those multi-crew vessels, and multi-crew is not so fun on your own. So if you're looking for people to come and join up with, just want a chilled out community to talk ship loadouts, mining techniques, or sort of get involved in some events, etc., then please come and hit us up on Discord. And we've got Free Fly just around the corner, so I really encourage anybody who's considering, just don't maybe pull the trigger this week. Just wait until sort of Free Fly starts this weekend. Jump in. There'll be a bunch of ships for you to try for free. You just need to have an account created to participate in that. So if you are creating an account for that, just make sure you use someone's referral code. Go flash mine up on screen, but it doesn't have to be mine. Just make sure you use one because it gets you some free credits to start with, and it helps whoever's you use out as well. So with all that said, I guess we'll start mining. So, as we've done in previous episodes of this series, I've got my clock running in the bottom right-hand corner, and I've sped the video up because otherwise the length of this is going to run into the realm of sagas. And one of the things that I was after with this series was to provide a real true representation of what Star Citizen's like and sort of how long grind takes and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to include, things like server crashes, bugs, the stuff which sets you back and can frustrate you if you're not expecting it. Star Citizen is an alpha, and you need to be aware that you're working into a game which is not finished, and has these things. But one thing which I also wanted to include was my own mistakes. so that you might be able to learn from them and avoid doing some of the things that I do. So, to be honest, this one was a mistake of hubris. Um, I I am primarily a miner. That's my main game loop, and so I wanted, having done sort of rock mining and bounty hunting, I'm now on to Quantanium, which is this is basically my bag. So I wanted to go for the sort of potentially highest reward way to Quantanium mine. So I've covered this off in a couple of previous videos, which are all centered around sort of how to effectively Quantanium mine, where to find Quantanium. It's the most valuable rock in the game if you haven't come across it before. And in one of my previous videos, I've documented sort of a method using a cargo box to mark spots of like a lot of big densities of Quantanium asteroids. So to vastly simplify it, from Crew L1, which is where I want to refine my Quantanium, I've got two options of places to hit up. I can either go to L3, which has fairly consistent but lower density Quantanium rocks, or I can head to the Aran Halo, which is a huge asteroid belt that runs around the Stanton Star. And I've got the potential to find much bigger sort of clusters of Quantanium rocks. So in her L3, the maximum number of rocks that I would find, that's what I kind of mean by density, maximum number of rocks I would find is 4. More likely I'm just going to find one rock on its own. Whereas in the Halo, you can potentially find sort of 13, 14, 15 rocks all clustered together. So I've got that cargo box that I picked up from a box mission, a sort of little delivery mission, so that if I find a big cluster, I can drop the box in space and then I can use the marker of that box to find my spot again. So I've managed to find one Quantanium rock. It's pretty decent, sort of well over 30%. So this is the sort of thing that we're looking for to fill up our prospector with Quantanium, but it's only one on its own. So I'm just going to grab this one because you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. But really what I'm looking for is a big cluster which is going to be worth sort of going back to once I've found it. So mine one rock, go back home, drop it off, and then come back out to that spot that you've marked with the box. The downside to the Halo though is that it's very big, and it contains rocks of all types. So at her L3, there are only 3 sort of primary materials that you'll find in any of the asteroids: laranite, hephaestonite, and Quantanium. At the Aran Halo, there's every type of material imaginable. So with that in mind, you have to do an awful lot more scanning to find sort of good Quantanium rocks to mine. We don't want to get lured into mining anything that isn't Quantanium because it's just not worth the time. So this did take me quite a long time to find. So I'm nearly an hour and 30 minutes in to my trip, with all that extra time to go and get the box to begin with. I've dropped my box out in space next to this cluster because there's this Quantanium rock to get, and then within that cluster there was sort of another 25-30% rock. So this isn't sort of amazing. I mean, amazing would be finding a cluster with sort of 4 decent viable rocks to mine in it. Because then if you find it and you mark it, then you cut out all that scanning time. But this, because of the sheer amount of potential rocks there are to find, you're just lowering your percentage chances of finding good Quantanium. I think maybe because more recently I've been playing with a group of people, and we've been doing most of our mining missions and operations to the Aran Halo, but then we've got lots of us out spreading the net very wide. Lots of people scanning then reduces that time, and we get to benefit from then one person finding a big cluster, and we can just go and sort of all congregate on it and have enough of us to take it all home. This is probably not the approach to take solo, and this was a mistake that I made. So probably not worth the extra time compared to just going to referral 3 and consistently finding rocks in a span of sort of 10 minutes scanning. So one thing that I am just going to point out, I'm using one little trick workaround. Rather than landing the prospector on the pad, I'm just hovering over a different one. I'm obstructing it, and then I get impounded without landing. That's because the prospector does suffer from a bug when it comes to landing. And then, this is where Chris Roberts decided to laugh at me. Because just after I'd got that refinery job back in, I got hit by a 30k. So just in case you haven't come across it before, a 30k is a server error. And just means that everything is gone. So you have to load in on a fresh server. So that whole rigmarole I went through with the boxes was time wasted. So at that point, I decided to go back to Old Faithful for solo mining, and I started hitting up referral 3. And from that point, the results were pretty good. So I started finding decent Quantanium rocks in a reasonable amount of time. What I wasn't finding was, the big clusters, but I'm in a prospector, so it doesn't really matter a huge amount. As long as I can just consistently keep finding rocks of more than sort of say 25%, then I can keep bringing home decent amounts of money on an hourly basis. So I'm sorry if I'm glossing over some of the finer detail of sort of how to mine, what you would look for in a particular rock. If you need any help with sort of the actual techniques of these things, then please just check out some of my previous videos. I've got a section called Miner's Corner, which contains quite a lot of the videos that I've done on sort of how to scan correctly, where to go looking for Quantanium, how best to approach sort of the technique of mining and then picking it up. We also go through sort of what the different mining modules do. So you'll see, for example, I'm using down the left-hand side Surge and Brant modules. So those are just to make life easier when it comes to cracking the rock. And then it's just sort of a case of just making sure that you, particularly in the Prospector, which has sort of a relatively small cargo capacity, making sure you identify those 100% pieces, get yourself full, and then get back as quickly. The big thing with Quantanium is that it will explode in your cargo hold after 15 minutes. So a general rule that I go with is making sure I break up the whole rock into its individual parts, so it's all ready to extract, so that I don't start that 15-minute timer running until the very last moment. And then, like I said before, because the Prospector does suffer from bugs sometimes what will happen is you'll go to land on the pad that you're assigned, and the moment that you touch down, even though you've got plenty of time, you'll go critical and explode. So I use this trick where I just hover over the pad instead, and then we run it to the refinery and drop these jobs in. So there's no limit to the jobs that you can get stacked up in the refinery, as far as I found. Over the course of this video, I'm going to mine 17 rocks in total, and I no problem managed to get all of those jobs all stacked up at the same time together. So in the interests of min-maxing a bit, I made sure I only sort of stopped for rocks which were ideally 30% plus. I took some 25s, some 20s. 117 was when my fiance was asking me if I could stop and help her with something, and I saw a 17% rock, and I was just like, yeah, sure, we'll take that one. But generally, it's a case of just making sure that you focus on sort of rocks which are going to get you as full as possible. So about 5 hours and 20 odd minutes in, I hit a bit of a problem. I ran out of money for refining, so I had to stop mining for a second, jump in my arrow, and go and do one of the ERT group bounties that we were doing in the previous video. So there's no problem with mixing and matching sort of what you're doing. So what I could have done is I could have sort of mined one load and sold it direct to the refinery. That gets you sort of half the cash that you would get for a refined load of Quantanium. So a full hold is worth about 275,000 when refined, so it was sold directly to the refinery for sort of 140. But I needed to make a stop off at Port Olisar anyway to get some more consumables, so it was quite efficient for me to just weave in that bounty run and get some extra cash together. So I split my my time up over a number of sessions, and sort of the joy of the refining is that it will take place while you're offline. At this point, I switched over. I was using Linux solventation, but I switched over to Ferrin Exchange at this point. Ferrin Exchange is a good deal faster than Linux. It costs about twice as much, but I believe it's about 4 times faster, 3-4 times. So I just did that to make sure that sort of my jobs were all ending on the same day, so that I knew I had some free time one evening to run all my cargo jobs to the TDD. So yeah, just worth, I guess, mentioning that. So when the reason that we bought the Prospector and the Freelancer Max is the Prospector is the ship that we do this Quantanium mining in. But the Freelancer Max is then required once we've got all those jobs at the ready. We have to load them up from the refinery. We put them into the Freelancer Max, and then we're going to take those over to Area 18 on erkul. And it's that major landing zone which will buy the finished materials from us. So I'm flying solo. So one thing that I would recommend you do before you do this stage of actually transporting, I'm just asking if somebody in the server would mind if I added them as a friend. It's basically, I'm going to go and get in my ship, and I've got about a 40 million kilometer journey to erkul to go and sell. So there's nothing I can really do at this stage about a server crash, and this is one of the big risks of mining versus bounty hunting, say, for grind. If you're bounty hunting, then the worst thing that can happen in the event of a server crash is you fail the mission that you're on. For mining, the worst thing that can happen is a server crash happens when you're at this stage, and the cargo ship you're using and all of the Quantanium that's in it disappears. So this Freelancer Max fits approximately 4 full jobs in it. Each of those jobs took me an average of sort of 20 minutes to find a decent rock, mine it, and then return it to the refinery. So at this point of this run, 80 minutes of work is on the line if I get a server crash. What could also happen, though, is just my PC could crash, my game could crash, and the server's all still there. So what I would recommend doing is before you go and do any cargo runs, just do what I did and just ask if somebody would mind if you friended them. When you look at your friends, you see your friends list on the right-hand side when you log in. There's an option to right-click on anyone in your friends list and join on friend. Sometimes the server's full, it will show as sort of 50 out of 50. You might have to wait a little bit to get back in on that friend, but if you know you've got a friend in the same server that you just crashed out of, then you can log back in and your ship and cargo will be there intact. So I've just sold my first load for just under 1 million credits, which is nice. We're definitely back in the black. And just on the return journey here, one of the things I've picked up is I've just stopped off at Port Olisar to buy some of the parts for the Constellation, This will just save me making sort of a trip to Hurston to go and buy my Connie, and then back here to buy the parts. So now it's a case of rinse and repeating. I had a total of 17 jobs. I farmed a total of 45,740 units of Quantanium. So that actually came out almost perfectly at 4 runs in the Freelancer Max with its 1,200 capacity. So these trips to Area 18, you might ask sort of why Area 18 when it's 40 million kilometers away, when you could go to Lorville, which from Crew L1 is only about 20 million. The reason is all tied to inventories at these different trade and development divisions. So Arc Corp has by far the best inventory size and refresh rates. So it's more efficient. You'll turn up here and you'll much more likely be able to just sell your full hold of Quantanium. And so each of these runs is taking about half an hour. So that does add to your sort of total time. But there we have all the money we need for this constellation. So quick trip in there to head over to New Deal on Lorville. And we are the proud owners of a Connie. So quickly just going to equip some of those parts that I bought at Port Olisar after the first run. And pull this out. And we'll take a look at this ship. So there we have it. About 11 hours, 42 minutes. And we're the proud owners of a decent-sized multi-cruise ship. So that worked out quite nicely, really, because each of these sort of 3 episodes has been about that, just shy of 12 hours for each of the stages. So to go from a starter package for sort of one of your $45 ships to a small fleet, which is going to really give you access to all of the different game loops and the chance to have some fun with your friends in 36 hours. Really, to me, in the scale of MMOs, is not too bad at all. Of course, if you really know what you want to do in Star Citizen, if you're very comfortable with the amount of money, then there definitely is an argument for, buying a better ship. The one thing that I would say on that is I think a lot more people should take some time to start with a starter package and familiarize themselves with the game. I've bought lots of ships in game for Alpha UEC, so I'm now comfortable that I know exactly what ship I would love to start with. So then it's not so worrying to maybe go and spend a bit of cash on that. But if you don't have that cash to spend, then certainly don't spend it, because this is a game where it is perfectly viable to start with a starter pack. And I would stress this as well. I've done this all solo. I could have done this a lot quicker with a couple of mates, because there are lots of techniques that you can use as 2, as 3, as 5 people to make yourself an awful lot more efficient in this grind and actually sort of make more money together than you each could individually as a solo. So, don't be put off the game because you are intent to just start with a starter ship. Don't be put off by the fact that, if I don't go and spend $350 on a better starter, then I'm not going to be able to enjoy this game. I mean, I think there's plenty to enjoy, and there's plenty of potential with a starter ship to be able to, particularly at this point of the game's development, just get yourself into it, and a bit of grind like I've done over the course of this mini series, and you've got a decent selection of ships with which to enjoy the game as it is now, and you've got the understanding of how to make yourself more Alpha UEC to go and buy any of the ships which are in game. The current schedule basically goes like they'll release a ship to the people who paid for it one patch, but then it will be available to buy in game by the next patch. So you shouldn't maybe get sucked up in the FOMO. So after all that, I think Redshirt Steve's earned a well-deserved break. But going forward into the next sort of week, I'm going to be trying my best to put out a lot of content covering Invictus. We'll be taking a look each day at some of the ships and stuff which are on display at the expo hall. And I really hope if you haven't had a chance to play Star Citizen yet, that you jump in, because you can't argue with free. It's my favorite price in the world. So yeah, just get yourself an account created and get the game downloaded and just have a fly around. Just once again from me as well, I know I said it at the beginning of the video, but a huge thank you to everyone who's supported the channel. 1,000 subscribers is a really big milestone for me. So I'm very, very grateful. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, but you think that this sort of content is useful to you and you think I've earned it, then please consider hitting that button, because it'd be great to see how much further we can go. Okay, with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you out there.